honest with me right now. Like, look me in the eyes and evaluate my sanity.
Oh, God, what's happening?
Is it an actual documented psychological phenomenon to feel like a geographic location has physically attached itself to your shadow? Because I am sitting here in this room staring at the corner of the ceiling, and I swear the light is bending differently than it was yesterday.
I mean, if you're defining a paranormal entity as the sheer, unadulterated volume of rendered animal fat and sodium we just aggressively forced into our bodies, then yes.
Shut up!
I'm serious. There is absolutely a dark passenger haunting your cardiovascular system right now. Your blood pressure is the real ghost story here.
I am completely serious, though. The psychological bleed over from this environment is so intense. But, Biggs, welcome back.
Welcome back to the Snark side.
Yes, welcome back. I am talking directly to you, our Snark squad, because sitting here in the heavy, fog-choked atmosphere of Salem, Massachusetts right now is just, it's a whole mood.
It really is.
And doing this specific horror TV discussion from this location is the absolute perfect spooky pairing. Thank you guys so much for being here. We see you. We love you. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. But I am genuinely bummed that our mini Salem vacation is ending.
I know. The environmental immersion has been unparalleled. We've essentially just been marinating in a geographic location historically defined by paranoia, mass hysteria, and, the fatal consequences of closed societies.
Literally, which is exactly the vibe of the show.
Exactly. It's the foundational architecture of the town we're about to talk about.
It really hit me today at the Witch Trials Memorial.
Yeah.
Like, you walk into that space, and it's not just a tourist stop.
No, it's heavy.
It is a visceral weight. You look at those names carved into the stone, and the reality of that hysteria just hits your chest. And I just have to say, shout out to all the strong, powerful women of history. Babes, they might have called you witches, but we see you for what you were. You were strong, powerful, and probably just way ahead of your time.
I mean, respectfully, yes, I validate the emotion. But we also have to acknowledge the cynical reality that being, quote-unquote, ahead of your time back then just meant you probably knew how to read.
Oh, my God.
Or you, refused to churn butter on a Tuesday, which was an automatic death sentence. The community just used the supernatural as a convenient excuse to execute a very earthly form of social control.
Okay, but babes, speaking of earthly social control, we just finished a massive Five Guys burger.
A completely feral display of gluttony.
I am spiraling about it. Like, is grease a love language?
Yes.
Because I ordered extra cheese, extra bacon, and I have absolutely zero apologies. When my fingers are just coated in salt and fat, tearing through those paper napkins, sipping a fountain drink, I am at peace. Health versus happiness on vacation is a real debate, and happiness won today.
It was a beautiful display of terminal indulgence. The bun's structural integrity was completely compromised by the grease at the bottom of the bag.
Oh, the clear brown paper bags. So good.
But it actually made me think, if we got sent back in time and put on trial for witchcraft, what would your defense even be?
Oh, I would be so good at this. I would weaponize empathy. I would lay out this highly emotional, tear-filled plea of innocence to the village elders.
Okay, and I have to brutally shut that down right now.
Why? I'd be so persuasive.
There is no defense. You're done. Empathy is a modern currency. In a society run by paranoia, your tears are just proof for manipulation.
I mean, I guess.
Look at our baseline behaviors. We sit in a room, broadcasting loud, highly opinionated voices into a digital void. We're completely independent. We just ate decadent bacon burgers with our bare hands. You'd be convicted in 5 seconds.
The podcasting alone would get us burned at the stake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but after dinner, Snark Squad, we hit up Bit Bar.
Oh, the arcade.
If you want to understand our shared aesthetic, it is the chaotic, neon-lit, slightly unhinged environment of a 90s bar arcade.
It's controlled chaos.
Yes. Drinks constantly flowing, loud games, button smashing. I was aggressively losing at pinball and just laughing so hard my ribs hurt. I would absolutely thrive in that environment forever.
Well, an arcade is a controlled simulation. You put the token in, you play the game, you leave. The horror only starts when the simulation refusing to let you leave and the rules start shifting.
Which is the perfect, devastating transition. Okay, babes, we need to get into From. Because this show...
It is actively mutating.
I am losing my mind over this week's episode. We have to start with the barn. The physical and psychological destruction of Jim.
A profoundly violent recalibration of the town's boundaries.
My jaw unhinged. You have Jim's body hanging upside down from the rafters, his chest is completely ripped out, and the message painted in blood says, "Knowledge comes at a cost."
It's surgical precision from the town.
It's so brutal. The sheer cruelty of orchestrating that for Ethan and Julie to find. I was heartbroken for those kids, finding your dad butchered like that.
Let's analyze why they targeted Jim, though. Jim represented intellectual arrogance.
Oh, for sure.
From day one, his coping mechanism was engineering. He thought the town was a solvable equation. He built the radio tower. He pushed the boundaries. The town operates on submission, and Jim refused to submit. So they didn't just kill him. They made a statement.
Knowledge comes at a cost.
Exactly. It's the town's algorithm punishing a user who tried to hack the system.
It is the ultimate punishment. But this is where my empathy just completely vanishes. Tabitha.
Oh, boy.
I am vibrating with rage about this. She returns from the real world, finds her husband violently butchered, looks at her traumatized kids, and her response is a Post-it note.
A handwritten goodbye.
She scribbles a note, hands it to Donna, and tries to sneak off to the bottle tree. She abandons her children again at the exact moment their entire universe has collapsed.
I'm going to propose a highly clinical, cynical defense of Tabitha here.
I literally cannot wait to hear this.
She's operating under a state of rational irrationality.
What does that even mean?
You're judging her through normal maternal psychology. But her mind is fractured. She genuinely believes she is a reincarnated savior tasked with saving the children in the tower. To her, staying to comfort her kids is just a temporary Band-Aid.
It feels like a massive savior complex masking a flight response.
It is, but in her internal logic, the delusion acts as an emotional anesthetic. If she stops moving, she has to process her husband's hollowed-out chest. By running to the tree, she bypasses the grief protocol entirely.
It is pure narcissism dressed up as destiny. Thank God Henry was there. He physically blocked her from the tree.
He knows that manic frequency. He watched his own wife succumb to it.
He really did. And then the boy in white shows up. But he's not a boy anymore.
The rapid aging is a massive piece of lore.
He looks like a grown teenager. And he cryptically tells her the rules have changed so the tree won't work the same way. What does a supernatural entity hitting puberty actually imply?
It implies the town is a reactive, adaptive intelligence. Tabitha exploited a glitch with that tree before. The town analyzed the vulnerability and deployed a patch to close the loophole.
So it learns from their escapes.
Exactly. As for the aging, that requires massive thermodynamic energy. Is he metabolizing Jim's death? Is he feeding off the recent spike in murders to grow stronger?
Oh my God, the idea of him using Jim's death as metaphysical fertilizer makes me physically nauseous.
It perfectly mirrors the shift in strategy, though. Which brings us to the man in yellow, Sophia.
Sophia is the ultimate mean girl.
She is the town's autoimmune response.
She is a psychological terrorist. That scene where she's playing the weeping daughter over the dead pastor, and then the second she is alone, she reaches into his mouth and rips out his tooth.
The sound design in that scene was aggressively hostile.
The wet, cracking sound of pulling a tooth from a corpse, I was spiraling. Why does she even want it? Is it a trophy?
It's a mechanical clue. The underground monsters hoard physical items, right? Suitcases, watches, physical artifacts act as tethers. By taking a biological piece of the pastor, she is securing his identity.
Wait, like a magical joystick to control his body later?
Or to assume his form?
Yeah.
But it also just establishes her complete lack of humanity.
Her manipulation in the diner was terrifying. She sits with Kenny and Julie, plays the fragile victim, and softly suggests that the Matthews family brought the curse down on the town.
Textbook radicalization.
She's making the town turn on itself. She's basically organizing a Salem witch tribunal.
That's her directive. The monsters in the forest unify the humans. Unity makes them harder to break. Sophia's job is to dissolve the community from the inside.
Outsource annihilation. And then she decides to move in with Sarah, the absolute chaos of that.
The most dangerous domestic situation imaginable.
Sophia, the deceptive villain living with Sarah, the hallucinating town pariah. I was screaming.
But tactically, it's brilliant. Sarah's psychological firewall is already broken. Sophia's just cultivating a weapon. She's going to gaslight Sarah into sabotage and let Sarah take the fall.
It's so deeply toxic. Speaking of toxic living situations, we have to talk about Colony House. Fatima and Elgin.
A mud spa from hell.
First of all, the tension when they saw each other. Fatima literally gave birth to a monster and murdered Tilly. Elgin is just looking at her like, oh, hey.
The unspoken trauma of, remember when your demon pregnancy drove you to kidnap me?
But Fatima is so profoundly broken. Her body was non-consensually used. She drank blood. She is traumatized. When Ellis took her to the junkyard to smash cars as a rage room, I loved that. It was real therapy.
A great pressure valve for her trauma, but the narrative immediately undercuts it.
Because while she's doing that, Elgin is carrying a cooler full of raw dirt into her bedroom.
Why is she hoarding dirt?
Honestly, I have no idea. Is she a vampire?
Let's look at the biology. She craved blood, teeth falling out, temperature drops. In folklore, vampires must sleep in the soil of their homeland to regenerate. If the pregnancy altered her DNA, she might physically require the town's soil to survive.
Wait, that actually makes so much sense. Or what if it's a nesting behavior? Like she saw the sacrificial cave and now she's building a clay replica in her room.
A localized incubation chamber.
Yeah.
She's bringing the cursed forest into the house. It ruins the hardwood, frankly.
You and the hardwood floors. Okay, let's pivot to the collapsed Matthews house. Julie wants to learn story walking to save her dead dad.
We have to define story walking. The town absorbs psychic energy. It scanned Ethan's subconscious and manifested his children's books, like The Lake of Tears, into reality. Story walking is traversing those fictional, manifested landscapes.
Turning silly childhood imagination into actual lethal reality is so twisted, and she wants to crawl into that rotting debris to find the book, and then Randall steps in.
The human embodiment of a lit match in a fireworks factory.
I am obsessed with his toxic but heroic masculinity right now. He is so mean he lives on a bus, but the second a kid is in danger, he literally army crawls over a decaying human corpse to get a book.
And a rat crawls out of the corpse's mouth.
I screamed.
He operates on a strict code of martyrdom. He acts like he hates everyone, but he has a desperate need to be valuable to the collective. He's a misanthrope who wants to be a hero.
It's working for me. But the Lake of Tears brings us to Victor and Ethan in the woods. And Victor's reaction fundamentally broke me.
A profound psychological unraveling.
They stumble on the man in yellow's discarded jacket. Victor, who has survived decades of horror, who walks through monster tunnels for fun, looks at this jacket and is so terrified he literally pees his pants.
It's the ultimate diagnostic metric for how dangerous Sophia really is.
Seeing him reduced to a crying, terrified child over a piece of clothing was devastating.
Victor survives by compartmentalizing. He built a mental fortress. The nighttime monsters are just weather to him. But the man in yellow is the hurricane that destroyed his original reality. Seeing the jacket shattered his mental fortress. His autonomic nervous system just completely failed.
It was excruciating vulnerability, but then the show gives us immediate emotional whiplash with Jade.
Aggressively unhygienic spiritualism.
He is floating spread eagle in a gross, algae-filled pond, like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, trying to unlock his past lives.
Creating a cursed bog like an exclusive wellness retreat.
And then he finds a patch of mushrooms in the woods. He's been begging for LSD, and now he's just going to eat random forest fungus.
And we know the town does not provide helpful psychoactive shortcuts.
Oh, absolutely not.
The entity provides illusions that lead to fatal errors. Those mushrooms aren't going to give him an ego death and an exit portal. They're going to give him aggressive diarrhea and paranoid delirium. It's a chemical straitjacket.
I am manifesting a full scene of him hallucinating equations while throwing up behind the house. Okay, we have to talk about Boyd and Acosta in the basement.
The architecture of guilt.
Acosta realizes they are trapped, so she asks Boyd for a single bullet to kill herself. And Boyd makes a deal with her to process the basement as a crime scene instead.
He's giving her busy work to keep her from pulling the trigger. Purpose is the antagonist of despair.
But he's totally projecting his guilt over Abby onto her, right?
100%. Abby had the same psychotic break. Boyd had to shoot his own wife. Acosta is his second chance. If he saves her, he retroactively validates his own morality.
Which makes the ending so targeted and cruel. Boyd goes to Abby's grave to vent, and a ghost hand bursts from the dirt and grabs him. The jump scare got me. But is it real? Or has he lost his mind?
The town is a reactive intelligence. Sophia wants to dismantle unity. Boyd is the load-bearing pillar. If Boyd fractures, the town falls apart. The town is weaponizing the literal corpse of his trauma.
It's psychological terrorism. Speaking of terrorism, we have to talk about the survival math you brought up earlier. The Snark Squad Reddit has been obsessing over the food supply.
The terrifying implications of the pantry. Let's run the metrics.
Yes, please explain this to the Snark Squad.
50 adult humans require over 150 meals a day. They have a tiny farm, some random woods chickens, and yet Victor has survived 40 years on canned peaches from one truck.
That truck should have been empty in 6 months.
It's biologically impossible, unless you accept the terrarium theory.
Wait, like a lizard tank.
Exactly like a lizard tank. In a terrarium, the creator controls the environment to sustain the life inside. You don't starve your pets. If they die, the experiment ends. The town is a metaphysical terrarium. It calculates their exact caloric deficit and magically restocks the pantry, just enough to prevent starvation.
So they aren't scavenging, they are literally being fed like captive livestock.
Yes, but the entity doesn't want their flesh. It harvests their psychological output, fear, grief, despair. And to harvest high-quality terror, the subject has to be relatively healthy. You can't be terrified if you're catatonic from starvation. The food is just an IV drip keeping the patient conscious during the torture.
Oh my God, that makes me physically sick. You don't starve your pets so you can torture them later.
Oh.
Okay, my brain is short-circuiting. We need to pivot to our segments. Segment 1, would you survive the night?
Brutal honesty required.
I will go first, and I have zero ego about this. I am dying on night 1.
I completely agree.
Let me explain. My baseline requirement for aesthetic comfort is just too high. If you tell me I have to sleep in a damp, ugly basement with 30 unwashed strangers, my flight response activates. And more importantly, my need for external validation is my fatal flaw.
Oh, it's going to be good.
If I'm looking out the window and a monster floats up looking like a sharply dressed vintage milkman, and he gives me a highly specific compliment about my outfit,
You're opening the window.
I am absolutely opening the window. I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. What's your skincare routine? And then he'd disembowel me. I am a casualty of my own vanity.
Tragic, but accurate. You'd be manipulated by supernatural riz. I, on the other hand, am highly optimized for survival
Because you have no empathy.
because I use structural logic. If the rule is nail the window shut and ignore the voices, I just execute the rule. Monsters don't have the leverage to trick me because I don't need validation from strangers.
So you're the new tactician of the town.
Yeah. Because I would self-terminate at a sheer annoyance.
Wait, what?
I would survive the monsters, but the social environment would break me. After 6 days of Tabitha's messianic rants, Jade screaming at whiteboards, and Randall starting fights over canned beans, I would just calmly unnail the door and walk into the forest.
You would just give up.
I would calculate that being torn apart by a monster is statistically preferable to attending another town meeting in the diner. I choose the void over bad roommates.
Death by misanthropy. I love it. Segment 2, red flag or just possessed. Behavior 1, Tabitha leaving her kids to go to the tree.
Absolute red flag. Delusion is not an excuse for child abandonment. A savior complex is just rebranded selfishness.
Completely agree. Behavior 2, Fatima hoarding a mud spa in her bedroom.
Red flag. Stop bringing outside dirt indoors.
No, I say just possessed. The poor girl birthed a demon. Her calcium is depleted, her instincts are hijacked. We can't hold her to standard domestic logic.
Supernatural trauma is not an excuse for destroying the hardwood flooring.
Okay, behavior 3, Sophia pulling the teeth out of corpses.
Unanimous. Iconic villain behavior, but deeply possessed.
Iconic and possessed. Segment 3, this is why I'd lose my mind. What specifically breaks you first?
Easy. Living in Colony House with 30 messy people sharing one bathroom. While Randall is causing drama outside and Jade is screaming about mushrooms, the lack of sanitation would destroy my mind faster than a monster.
Honestly, fair. For me, it's the crows at the funeral.
The avian harassment.
Yes. The town sends a flock of crows to aggressively squawk and mock a literal funeral. If I am grieving and the local wildlife organizes a bullying campaign against me, the indignity of it would break me. I would drop to my knees and just scream back at the birds.
Very Hitchcockian.
Okay, final segment. Snark Squad Survival Kit. We are building the ideal, chaotic kit for this town. Item 1 for me. A vacuum-sealed, infinite supply of Five Guys burgers. For morale and grease-based energy.
A solid dopamine strategy. My first item is a massive reserve of boxed wine.
Why boxed?
Glass breaks, it's a liability. And I need a constant slight buzz to politely listen to Tabitha's delusions without rolling my eyes.
The social lubricant of survival. Love it. Item 3 for me. Extra strength hold hairspray.
For humidity.
No, to blind the monsters. If a vintage milkman breaches my window, I am spraying an aerosol blast of chemicals right into his dead retinas.
Resourceful. My final item is a high-capacity super soaker filled with holy water.
Wait, a squirt gun.
I need empirical data. I want to walk up to the man in yellow while she's giving a monologue and blast her in the face with holy water. Does she melt? Does it just ruin her makeup? I need to know.
I would pay actual money to see you squirt Sophia like a bad cat. But babes, Looking at the time, I can feel the end of vacation sadness really setting in.
It's a very specific emotional cocktail right now.
Packing up to leave Salem just feels wrong. The ghosts, the grease, the arcade games, it has been completely unforgettable.
We survived the environmental immersion.
We really did. And to the Snark Squad, thank you. Thank you for always being there, for supporting the chaos, and for riding this messy wave with us every single week.
The community is everything. Please like, subscribe, and comment your own survival kit items below, and share the show with your messiest friend. They need the guidance.
They desperately need it. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, lay it on them.
If the boy in white is suddenly aging rapidly and he needs energy to do that, what if the timeline of the town isn't collapsing? What if he's feeding off the recent deaths? What if the quote-unquote good ghost is actually the apex predator and the monsters are just his worker bees harvesting trauma for him?
That completely inverts the structural hierarchy of the show. I am fascinated.
Right. Let that marinate tonight. Stay spooky, stay chaotic, and we'll see you on the Snark side.